and this is something I dove into in the MMQB lead this week. I think it's really interesting. You are seeing an influx of NFL people into the college game, and in particular into these general manager roles. Mike Martin, who had been with the Lions, is now the GM at Notre Dame. Pat Stewart, who had been with the Patriots, is now the GM at Nebraska. Jim Nagy, who worked for the Patriots, the Chiefs, and the Seahawks, and had run the Senior Bowl as the game's executive director over the last few years. He is now the general manager at Oklahoma. Ron Rivera, who had personnel power in Washington as the head coach there for the Commanders, he's now the general manager at Cal. So you see this influx of NFL people into college football. And I would encourage you to read the story we did on it. I think that there is an interesting aspect of all of this that is something you can apply to this year's draft when you're looking at the way that guys are coming into the NFL versus where they were maybe 5 or 10 years ago. And it's the reason why all these college programs are looking at it and saying we need to bring in NFL people, because there are NFL elements to the college game now. You could parallel the transfer portal with free agency. You can parallel the NIL with the salary cap. There's a lot of parallels that you can make where NFL experience is going to help these college people. So that means what's coming from college is now a little bit more NFLized, right? And how is it NFLized? Well, it's NFLized because these college players have jumped around in a lot of cases because of the transfer portal from program to program. So when you're looking at a guy's ability to learn maybe 3 systems in 5 years, some of these guys have already done it. You're not guessing on their ability to do it. And, you know, if you want to look at like them, the way that they're paid now, over the years, one of the big questions for NFL teams going into the draft when you're talking about a high-end prospect is, how is he going to handle all of a sudden making all this money? You're not guessing anymore. These guys have already made money. So in a lot of ways, it's made it easier for NFL teams to look at these guys. Now, there are challenges involved, of course. And there are players where you look at it and he didn't have success at the one school, but now he has success at this other school. So how do we sort that out? That's where it's gotten more complicated. But I do think that there's a lot of good to come from this. Another piece of good that I think is really an important thing when it comes to the players themselves, when we're drilling down on it, is say you have a kid from a tough background who after 3 years in college, he'd be a 6th or 7th round pick. And he feels like to help mom and dad out, he's got to come out and start making money right now. If you're a 6th or 7th round pick going into the NFL, there's no assurance that you're going to make a roster. If you go to the wrong place, say you aren't the fit they thought you were, then there's a coaching change after the year, you can wash out of the league completely. So say that kid now, that 6th or 7th round pick, now he's making a couple $100,000 a year. So now that kid says, you know what, I'm fine. I can stay the extra year. Now that guy the next year turns him into a 3rd or 4th round pick, turns himself into a 3rd or 4th round pick. Well, that 3rd or 4th round pick is going to get more of an opportunity to develop because of the investment the team made in him. He's got a better chance to stick in the NFL. So that's good for the player. It's good for the teams too, because they're seeing guys who are more developed, less guys who shouldn't come out that are coming out in the draft pool. And I think everybody winds up winning. So there's been a lot of good that's come out of this after a lot of concern. I think when you look 4 or 5 years ago at like, oh, this changing landscape and how's it going to affect the NFL? I actually think there's been plenty of good to come from it.